They say betrayal isn't like a sudden shock. It sneaks up on you slowly and coldly, like a cold breeze under a closed door. You don't even realize it until it's all around you, until you're sitting in a quiet office, looking at a blank inbox, wondering where everything went wrong. I'm Jack Mercer, 34 years old, from Portland, Oregon. I had a good life, a successful career, and a company I built from the ground up with a guy I thought of as my best friend, Nathan Hale. If you'd have asked me 5 years ago, I would have said he was the last person I'd expect to betray me. We met at Stanford in our senior year. I was the marketing brain, he was the tech guy. We hit it off right away. After graduation, we moved north and started EchoNest, a music social app that combines algorithmic music recommendations with local events. It's like Spotify meets Meetup, but for music. We worked our butts off for 4 years. Sleepless nights, red-eye meetings, and a bunch of rejections from investors that I couldn't even count. But then, finally, we started to see some traction. Users started growing, funding started coming in, and we were on our way. And then, just when we were about to take off, Nathan disappeared. One morning, I walked into the office with my latte, humming a 90s song, and saw his desk was empty. His laptop was gone. His drawers were empty. No note, no call. At first, I thought it was some sort of prank. Ha ha ha. Very funny, I said out loud, looking around like he might pop out with the camera crew. But he didn't. Not that day. Not the next. Then came the email from a law firm in Belize. Mr. Mercer, it said, per the transfer of ownership clauses in EchoNest LLC's founding documents, 2018, your partner, Nathan Hale, has exercised his rights to full ownership through a silent acquisition. So this morning, we sold all our assets, including IP, brand, and app revenue, to a third-party buyer. If you have any legal questions, please contact... I can't remember finishing that email. All I remember is the bitter metallic taste in my mouth like I had bitten into foil. My knees gave out, and I sat there on the cold office floor, staring at the wall like I could burn a hole through it. That wasn't just about business. It was everything. He sold our company without me, and he vanished. The worst part is remembering all those little moments. Late nights debugging code, pitching in front of investors, drinking whiskey on the rooftop of our office after we hit 10,000 users. Man, I couldn't have done it without you, he'd say with glassy eyes and a thick, sincere voice. We're going to change the game. Liar. I flew out to SF to meet with Aiden Clark. He was older than I remember, in his early 40s now with gray hair at the temples, but still sharp as ever. You know, the kind of guy who shakes your hand and you can tell he's sizing you up with his eyes. We met up at a rooftop bar in Soma with a view of the glittering bay. It was a cold night with wind blowing off the water, and I was wearing a jacket that no longer fit me. Too much sitting around, not enough hope. Aiden raised his glass of bourbon and said, Jack Mercer, the man who nearly knocked us off our feet 3 years ago. I managed a wry smile. Well, I did my job, I guess. He laughed and said, You sure did. And here you are now because the guy that stole your idea is wearing your design and calling it his own. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. He leaned in, whispering, Listen, I'm not here for revenge. I believe in opportunities. Nest Echo's bloated and their user retention is dropping. They're trying so hard to pivot it looks like they're having whiplash and they're desperate. I knew all that already. I'd been watching them for months, downloading updates, reading Glassdoor reviews, checking for employee exits on LinkedIn, so I knew their game. But we need someone who understands their DNA, Aiden continued. Their voice, habits, blind spots, and that's you, right? I nodded. I want you to help us take them down. Quietly, elegantly, no lawsuits, just better execution. I paused. This wasn't a job offer. It was a battle. That night in my hotel room, I stared at the slow spin of the ceiling fan. Part of me hoped I'd wake up from this nightmare and Nate would text out of the blue, "Hey man, this all went too far. Let's fix it." Just that same silence, which had become so familiar and heavy, felt like another presence in the room. I closed my eyes and remembered that night on the office rooftop, that whiskey, those stars. Nate's voice, low and confident. "We're going to change the game." And we did. Then he changed the rules. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of strategy meetings, whiteboard sessions, and endless iterations. PulseLink didn't have the glitz of Nest Echo, but they had hunger. Their development team was tight, their roadmap solid. They weren't sold out yet. Aiden gave me complete creative control over the relaunch strategy. I knew exactly what we needed to do. We didn't just improve the technology, we made it personal. We targeted their weaknesses. Poor UX, slow loading times, bloated features. We used their nostalgia for the old Echo Nest against them. Remember when music apps connected you, not distracted you? That was our tagline, you know? People remembered it. We launched quietly at first, just in select markets, college towns and music festivals. Then it spread like wildfire. Nest Echo noticed and rushed out a new update with half-baked features, but it crashed on launch day. I smiled for the first time in forever, but inside, I was still broken. Around month 3 of our campaign, I hit rock bottom. On my way back to my place in Berkeley with coffee in hand and earbuds in, I saw a poster for Nest Echo Live on a lamppost, featuring Nathan Hale as the guest speaker. There he was, smirking, standing in front of that pulsating blue waveform, speaking at some tech summit a few miles away. The guy who'd destroyed my future and left like a king. I just stared at that poster for a while. Then I ripped it down. I walked straight home, threw that crumpled advertisement on the floor, and collapsed on my couch. I was feeling so stressed, my hands were shaking. I didn't just feel angry, I was scared too. Scared that no matter how hard I tried, it wouldn't be enough and some people would get away with things. Life isn't fair. It's just headlines. That night, I went to my old computer and opened up my hard drive. There was a folder called Echo Nest Alpha/First Drafts. Inside were all the early sketches for the app, voice memos from our brainstorming sessions, and recordings of our first prototype. Then I found a video. It was a GoPro recording of our first investor meeting. We were both there, me in a rumpled blazer and Nate in a hoodie, looking nervous and hungry. Nate looked at me and said to the camera, "This is Jack, the heart and soul of Echo Nest. Without him, there's no Echo Nest." I watched the video twice and then deleted it. Because I finally understood. It wasn't about bringing Nate down. It was about standing up for myself. When you stop doubting yourself, there's a calmness that settles. The hurt turns into determination. It's not exactly peace, but more like a controlled burn. I was burning with a purpose. I knew Nathan's weaknesses, not just technically, but personally. He was brilliant, but arrogant and obsessive, always seeking attention, unable to resist being the center of attention. That's why he became the face of Nest Echo after the takeover. It was a mistake. You can't hide in the shadows wearing a crown. So we built our strategy around his weakness, his need for attention. We started by dropping a teaser campaign in the cities where Nest Echo was testing its new live mood feature, a real-time music matching engine powered by artificial intelligence. Great idea on paper, but a total privacy nightmare in reality. We set up a fake account, data undone, on Reddit, Twitter, and Medium. We carefully leaked code snippets, screenshots, and internal emails that we found from former employees. The posts seemed organic, like a whistleblower. In a week, Wired picked up the story, then The Verge and TechCrunch. Nest Echo's new feature tracks emotional state. But at what cost? Public backlash was instant. Angry tweets, one-star reviews, and protests from data ethics groups, even a few class action threats. It was great. But that was just Act 1. Meanwhile, I worked with PulseLink's developers on a secret weapon. a feature we called Deep Connect. Not flashy, no fancy AI or invasive analysis. Just a simple tool that lets users create and share customized soundtracks for life events. Breakups, road trips, panic attacks, first dates. We released it on Valentine's Day. Nest Echo didn't have anything planned that week. Result? We trended on TikTok for 4 straight days. One video of a girl sharing her grief playlist for her dog hit 12 million views. Her tears were real, and so was the love from the comments. We didn't just win over users, we won hearts. 2 weeks later, the email I'd been waiting for arrived. From a PR rep from Nest Echo. Mr. Hale wants to meet to discuss recent events and possible IP overlap. Can you do a video call on Friday? Bingo. I played it cool and replied with just one line, "Sure, let me know the time." I shaved that morning, wore a black button-up, no tie, just enough polish to look professional, not desperate. Nate showed up 5 minutes late for the Zoom call, still tanned from wherever he'd crawled out of last. "Jack," he said like we were friends, "you look good. You look healthy." "Cut the crap, Nate." He sighed. The smile dropped. "Okay, fine. Let's get to business." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "You've made your point. The launch was a disaster. The press has been hating us, and I'm getting pressure from investors. But I know it was you behind it." I didn't say anything. "I'm not angry," he continued. "In fact, I'm impressed. You're always good at playing the long game." I tilted my head. "You mean like secretly taking over a company behind your partner's back?" He tensed his jaw. "It was business, Jack. You were too emotional and would have messed up the deal." "No, I would have fought for the company we built." He let out a bitter laugh. "Do you still think it's ours?" That did it. In that moment, I knew I could never forgive him. It wasn't just guilt talking, it was ego. He truly believed he was the mastermind, and I was just lucky to be along for the ride. So I gave him the one thing he feared the most. "Actually, I've been working with PulseLink," I said flatly. His nostrils flared in anger. "We're not going to just bury you with features, Nate. We're going to revolutionize the category. You know, while you're begging for headlines, we're building trust. Trust gets you what?" I leaned in closer to the camera. "Loyalty, growth, power." He paused for a moment, but I saw something. A flicker behind his eyes. Then, slowly, he nodded. "All right, let's do this." We knew that Nest Echo had a big meeting at the end of the first quarter. Nate needed some big wins, user growth, media coverage, retention numbers, to show his boss what he was up to. So, we timed it just right, like a conductor waiting for the perfect moment to strike the cymbals. We launched PulseSync, a new back-end tool that allowed small music labels, artists, and venues to connect directly with PulseLink, sending personalized invites and early releases based on their location and listening habits. It was smooth, scalable, and it took a chunk out of Nest Echo's biggest source of revenue, paid brand placements. In just a week, Nest Echo lost 3 out of their top 5 venue partnerships. Aiden was so excited. "We're getting them, Jack, one by one." I wasn't smiling, because I knew what was coming next. Remembered something my dad said to me when I was 16 and angry about a basketball coach cutting me unfairly. "You can win all the arguments, but still lose everyone's respect. Victory without kindness turns into something dark." Didn't understand that then, but do now. Yet I couldn't stop. Not yet. After 2 days of PulseSync, Nest Echo's stock dropped by 17%. A leak confirmed what I suspected. Investors were going to take Nate down. Karma's catching up, but I wanted to watch him fall myself. The summit was held at the Glass House in San Jose, a building with steel beams and glass walls designed for ambitious people to discuss even bigger things. Outside, tech executives hung around electric car chargers and news vans, flashing their badges and checking the time like the apocalypse had been delayed for lunch. Inside, Nathan Hale was about to speak, and the irony was poetic. A year after PulseLink launched, he was still pretending to control the room filled with dinosaur-like executives. I wasn't hiding. Aiden had gotten me in through a VC partner. I sat in the back wearing a plain black outfit with a notebook, just another curious mind among the crowd. Then he walked onto the stage, polished and confident, but empty inside. "Hello," Nate said into the microphone as he paced like a seasoned speaker. "I want to talk about the importance of emotional intelligence in technology." I almost laughed aloud. Emotional intelligence, my ass. That guy was a total jerk. He started off with all this fancy jargon about neuroadaptive response systems and empathetic user loops, but I just tuned it out. I could see right through his bullshit. There was a slight tremor in his hand, and he paused a bit too long between points. He was clearly stressed. And then, during Q&A, some guy from PulseLink stood up and asked about Nest Echo's privacy policies. The guy totally lost it. He tried to spin it off, but the moderator cut him off. He said there was an EU investigation going on, and everyone in the room knew it. I could feel the tension in the air. Everyone was ready to pounce. The guy tried to backpedal, but it was too late. He was caught in a lie, and the whole room knew it. Too late. That clip went viral before the event was over. The headlines the next day were brutal. TechCrunch, Wired, The Guardian, all talking about how Nest Echo was facing a regulatory storm. Within 2 weeks, Nathan had to resign from the board. The company's value plummeted, partners left, advertisers paused their contracts. And just like that, our dream turned to dust. But I wasn't feeling victorious. I felt empty. There was one night that kept coming back to me. We were still working on Echo Nest, broken drunk on cheap whiskey. It was 3 a.m. The city spread out below us in a soft amber haze. Nathan turned to me and said, "You know, if we ever make it, promise me we won't forget why we started." "Which part?" I asked, swaying a bit. He grinned. "The part where we cared." Nathan cared once, so did I, and then, somewhere along the line, we both just stopped. A month later, I ran into him again. Not on stage, not behind the camera, in person. He showed up at my place. Without warning, he rang the buzzer like we were still sharing the air. I opened the door, and there he was, looking wrecked, having lost weight, with dark circles under his eyes. He didn't ask to come in. He just asked, "Why?" "Why what?" I said. "Why do you think?" He said, "I gave you everything all those years." "No," I interrupted. "You sold everything. You chose money over principle. You chose yourself." He looked away with a clenched jaw. I was scared. I didn't think we would make it. If I hadn't taken that deal, someone else would have. I couldn't let everything fall apart. "So you burnt it before it could burn you?" I laughed bitterly. "Congratulations, you were right. We didn't make it." We stared at each other in silence for a long moment. "I didn't come here to argue," he finally said. "I just wanted to know if you hated me as much as I hated myself." That hit me harder than I thought it would, but I didn't say anything. He turned to leave and then stopped. "You won," he said. "You know." "No," I replied quietly. "I just survived. There's a difference." Then I closed the door. Revenge felt like justice while it was happening, but after it all settled, it left me with a mirror. And the reflection didn't look so heroic. Nathan fell, and he deserved it. But somewhere in the wreckage of our friendship, I found something unexpected. Clarity. Not about him, but about me, about what's important. Trust, integrity, quiet pride in building rather than stealing. PulseLink continued growing, and I stayed for a while before stepping back to mentor younger founders like we were, hungry, idealistic, maybe naive. I told them the truth. Protect your reputation. Build with people you can trust when things go wrong. And if you have to choose between quick money or long-term trust, choose trust every time. Because at the end of the day, that's what Echo Nest was always meant to be. A signal, not an echo. 2 years later, I don't think about Nathan much anymore. Sometimes his name comes up in a conversation. It's usually in an article about where people are now in technology, or in a whisper in startup circles. Nathan started a big company and got swallowed up by it. It's kind of sad. But I didn't get what I wanted. There was no celebration. Revenge doesn't happen like that. When someone falls, there's no music or applause. There's only silence. The question is, what now? Aiden offered me a job after PulseLink went public. He thought I had the vision to lead, but I turned him down. I moved to Denver and then Austin and now Burlington. I speak at events for startups and help them not make the same mistakes. I wasn't running anymore. I wanted to help. In the quiet rooms, I felt like I found what I was looking for. Once after a meeting, a young guy came to me. He was 22 and still wore braces. He asked me who to trust. I thought about all the bad answers I gave in the past. I said, see how people are when there's no reason to be good. That's who they are. The young man nodded and wrote down what he heard. For the first time in a long time, I felt something special. It wasn't about winning or getting revenge. It was about understanding. When I look at old files, like screenshots and wireframes, it's like looking at someone else's memories. Some are good, some are bad. Like an old hurt on a rainy day. What I remember are not the codes or the product. It's the moments. It was 2 years before everything started to go wrong. We were in our office in Portland. It was sunset. Nate fixed a problem that had been there for 4 days. He jumped up and said, "We made this ourselves." I laughed and felt proud. I realized that is what happiness feels like. It was funny that betrayal took our future and our past. I wrote a letter to Nate's sister a few months later. I said that I didn't hate Nate, but I couldn't forgive him. I wanted him to be proud again. She said, he needed that.